Hello everyone, this is News Review, today June 12, 2019. My name is Lamin Jai. Coming up on the show, State drop charges against Fatoumata Jahumpa Sise and Yankuba Toure. Will bring you that report a little bit later. Also coming up, Justice Ministry parleys with journalists. We'll bring you that report too. But first, we will begin with the papers, and I'll start with the Standard newspaper. The Standard today is reporting that 9 chiefs removed under President Barrow's government. That's the lead story there. Also on the Standard, AFPRC Commissioner Bojang terrorized opposition in CRR. Also on the Standard, Talib doing very well in KMC. Also on the Standard, World Bank grants $30 million to Gambia's poor. CDS tells soldiers to be loyal to Gambia. We'll quickly go through some of the stories there. 9 chiefs removed under Barrow. The Minister of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs, Musa Drame, has informed the National Assembly that 9 district chiefs have been removed since President Adama Barrow came to power in 2017. The minister was responding to questions from members of the National Assembly at their yesterday's session. The National Assembly members, led by Halifa Sallah of Serakunda, asked about the number of removed chiefs and Alkalolu and the reasons for their removals. Honorable Sallah has contended that both the Local Government Act and the Constitution of the Gambia have stated the means through which the President determines whether a chief is guilty of misconduct or not, and further provided for the establishment of a commission of inquiry to examine the conduct of any district chief before their removal. In his response, Minister Drame disclosed that 9 chiefs and 2 Alkalolu were removed, while 2 others, Seth Gay of Sabah Sanjal and Ibu Koli of Foni Bondali district, retired. He said their removals or retirements were in the interest of upholding public interests and proper public administration. According to the minister, retirement is an honorary decision extended to some of the chiefs as a means of lesser punishment for misconduct. The National Assembly members further pressed the minister as to how and who makes such decisions if there is no statutory retirement age for a chief. Minister Drame replied that though there is a clause in the act that provides retirement benefits for chiefs, if the impression was for the chiefs not to be retired, there would not have been any provision for a retirement benefit. The establishment of a commission of inquiry is discretionary and not mandatory because the Constitution states it's as shall and not should. At the time of removing these chiefs, the decision relied on was Section 136 of the Local Government Act, the minister argued. AFPRC Commissioner Bojang terrorized opposition in CRR. That's a code there. Amadou Sane, treasurer of the United Democratic Party, has told the TRRC that the AFPRC junta had not allowed any conducive climate for opposition parties to operate, especially in the CRR, that's the Central River region, where he said he contested 3 times for parliament and lost. In his testimony on the UDP 1996 ambush, Sane alleged that former military commissioner Mamadou Bojang used to threaten the people of that area with armed soldiers who would go around and tell people to vote for the APRC or face the consequences. Talib is doing very well in KMC. The spokesperson of activist One Gambia Association, Suleiman Damfa, who also speaks for the Serakunda Market Committee, has said Mayor Talib Bensouda is doing very well in KMC, transforming the thinking and attitude towards development for all. A businessman himself, Damfa also revealed that the innovative drive and dedication in improving the welfare of the inhabitants of KMC is increasingly making rounds or making Bensouda popular even with those who did not vote for him. World Bank grants $30 million to Gambia's poor. World Bank on Tuesday signed a $30 million social safety net project with Finance Ministry at the Quadrangle in Banjul. Speaking at the ceremony, Mod A.K. Seka, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, said the project is a World Bank grant and the Social Protection Secretariat will be housed at the Office of the Vice President, which will provide strategic oversight and policy coordination for the project. CDS tells soldiers to be loyal to Gambia. The Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, Masane Kinte, has called on the men and women of GAF to be loyal to the Gambia. In a statement read on his behalf by the Navy commander at the Civil Military Relations Seminar funded by the U.S. Department of State, planned and implemented by the U.S. Department of State. Defense CDS Kinte reminds the military that it is imperative that they see nothing but the Gambia and her citizens. That will be all on the Standard. And now we'll have a look at some of the stories on the Point. The Point lead story today also says Amadou Sane narrates dreadful experience on the AFPRC or APRC regime. Gambia World Bank signed social safety net project there. That's also reported by the Standard. Also, TRC chairman urges people with stories to come forward. CRC Right to Know Whole Conference on reforms and democracy. So we will try to see what stories we can bring you on the Point. TRC chairman urges people with stories to come forward. The chairman of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, Lamin JCC, has called on people who have stories to tell to come and share, vowing that their dignity as human beings and their rights as citizens will never be compromised by the Commission. Dr. Caesar was speaking on Monday during the opening of the 5th session of the hearings of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, TRRC, held at a local hotel in Kololi. Transport unions endorse MOU to revitalize transport subsector. The Gambia Transport, Agriculture, Food and Industrial Workers Association, or Union, and the Gambian National Transport Control Association, aligned with Transport Drivers Association of the Gambia, on Monday signed a memorandum of understanding MOU that will revitalize the transport subsector in the country to guarantee an effective operational system. So that will be all for the papers. We will move to our first story there. The Gambia Armed Forces, in collaboration with the United States Office for Security Cooperation, on Tuesday began a 4-day training workshop for members of the Army, government and civil society actors. The training, dubbed Civil-Military Relations Training, was meant to raise the understanding, or is meant to raise the understanding of people in respect of civil-military relations. Let's have more in this report.
It is important by virtue of the fact that if you look at what we went through in the past 22 years, the relationship between the members of the armed forces, especially the Gambia Armed Forces, and our civilian counterparts had deteriorated to a very serious level. And with the new dispensation, it is important that we revisit, those initiatives that will help us resuscitate that good relation that we had with our civilians. That is why trainings like civil-military relations, human rights, leadership courses, etc., are being conducted by the Gambia Armed Forces. So like you said, this is the second edition of the civil-military relations training, and we are doing this in partnership with the United States Office of Security Cooperation that is based in Dakar. And they provide the facilitators from the United States Armed Forces to train our members of the armed forces, as well as other security services like the police, immigration, fire and rescue services, Gambia prison services, as well as civilian organizations like civil society organizations. The Tango has been invited. Members of the media fraternity have also been invited, and several other organizations, because we look at the training as not only relating to the Gambia Armed Forces alone, but we need to educate our personnel as to how we relate to civilians in a democratic dispensation like what we have right now. So we are trying to redeem our image and also rebrand ourselves, having recognized the fact that our being is as a result of civilian initiative, that the civilians thought it fitting that the Gambia should have an armed forces, and that is as enshrined in the 1997 Constitution, and that is a constitution that was voted into by a referendum by the Gambian people, and there are certain tenets that they look for in us. And what we went through in the past 22 years was a negation of most of those tenets, like respect for human rights, respect for freedoms and of persons, expression, etc., etc. So we are on a reform agenda, and part of the steps we are taking towards reforming and redeeming our image is in the way of training and sensitization of our personnel especially. So this training is very, very significant in that it is imparting knowledge to our members to understand the fact that we are in a democratic dispensation and there is a way and manner that we have to comport ourselves vis-a-vis our civilian counterparts. They should not see us as threats or like human rights violators, but as saviors of the Gambian people to ensure that people go about their lives and they are living in peace and security. Well, last year we had about 55 trained, and this year we're talking about another 55. So gradually we are getting there, and you know the training itself is not like a training per se. But like in the Chief of Defense Staff's remarks, he did allude to the fact that we should see this as a training of trainers, seminar. So all the officers and soldiers we brought in here, these are people that are in command positions that are in charge of troops and, you know, in the battalions and the units. So what we are telling them is like, once you get this knowledge, you should not limit it to yourself. But once you go back to your unit, you should impart it and share this knowledge with your comrades and your colleagues in the battalions and also in the units. So, you know, 55 years is a small number, but we are looking at the multiplying effect that is there. Every soldier, you know, if you impart this knowledge to 10 other soldiers, you know, by the time we say 2-3 years down the line, every member of the armed forces would have had the message that we are in a democratic dispensation and this is what is expected of members of the armed forces. And in addition to even this, we have had several other trainings apart from this. Like before we deployed to our mission in Darfur, the United Nations has some kind of training packages that
Now, after almost 2 months of legal battle, the TRRC witnessed tampering case against Fatoumata Jahumpa Cissé and Yankuba Toure has been discontinued. The case has generated huge interest, not least the fact that it was the first ever case that TRRC has brought against anyone to show it is all about business at TRRC, but also captured national attention in that the duo occupied prominent positions in the former government. Momodu Justice Dabo has been following Wednesday's development and now reports.
Fatoumata Jahumpa Cissé and Yankuba Toure came into conflict with the loss of the land in February of this year when police accused them of interfering with a witness of the Gambia's Truth and Reconciliation Commission set up to probe the 22-year excesses of former President Yahya Jammeh. The duo was dragged to the courts on suspicion of attempting to influence a Truth Commission's witness whose name has been adversely mentioned in Commission's hearings in connection to instances of brazen human rights violations that happened in Yundum Barracks 3 months after the July 1994 military takeover. Yankuba Toure and Fatoumata Jahumpa Cissé were said to have engaged former Sergeant Alhaji Skanyi in phone conversations in which they were alleged to have told the ex-army sergeant not to treat the Truth Commission with seriousness. Skanyi had admitted to participating in the gruesome killings of some soldiers and officers of the defunct Gambia National Army who were accused of involvement in a coup plot against the AFPRC junta in November of 1994. The charges carry a penalty of up to 3 years in prisons or a fine of $1 million or both. But the Fatu Network understands Wednesday the state has withdrawn the case. Since at the outset, one of the weaknesses of the prosecution in proving guilt against the two lied in the fact that Alhaji Kanye had earlier told a lower court in Kanifing that it was Toure and Madam Jahumpa Cissé who advised him not to mind the Truth Commission, but he subsequently testified to the contrary when he informed the High Court in Banjul that the duo had never sought to interfere with him or his testimony before the commission. The case was consequently dismissed on grounds of warrant of prosecution. Yankuba Toure and Fatoumata Jahumpa Cissé held various top positions in the government of former dictator Yahya Jammeh before falling out with him. Fatoumata Jahumpa Cissé once served as the spokesperson for the former Gambian president before ascending to become a speaker of the Gambia's legislature. She was also a member of the West African Sub-Regional Parliament. Yankuba Toure also served as Minister of Local Government and Lands. He was also a one-time mobilizer of the APRC party. Reporting for the Fatu Network News Review, this is Momodu Justice Dabo.
The press was today briefed by the Minister of Justice on a wide range of issues. The press briefing convened at the Attorney General's chambers and the Ministry of Justice ground in Banjul touched on the ongoing security sector reform by the government or the sectoral reforms by the government of the Gambia to today's dismissal of the TRRC witness tampering case against Fatoumata Jahumpa Ceesay and Yankuba Touré.
Following the conclusion of the work of the Commission of Inquiry into the financial activities of public bodies, enterprises, and offices as regards their dealings with former President Yahya Jammeh, otherwise known as the Janneh Commission, and in its report submitted to His Excellency the President on 29 March 2019, the Janneh Commission found, among other things, that former President Yahya Jammeh, either directly or through third parties, embezzled over $1 billion, over 300 million US dollars, almost 30 million euros, and over 2 million pounds sterling. While the Ministry of Justice continues to review the said report in order to advise the President on the necessary actions to be taken to implement the recommendations of the Commission, the President has approved and the government has taken the following interim measures as part of its recovery efforts against former President Yahya Jammeh. 1. The immediate forfeiture to the state of all companies and their respective assets belonging to former President Jammeh upon the expiration on 17 June 2019 of the freezing order of the High Court. 2. The immediate forfeiture to the state of all movable and immovable assets, including developed and undeveloped landed properties, chattels, shares, and other acquisitions by former President Yahya Jammeh upon the expiration on 17 June 2019 of the freezing order of the High Court. 3. The immediate forfeiture to the state of all movable and immovable assets, including developed and undeveloped landed properties, chattels, shares, and other acquisitions by Mr. Mohamed Bazi, a close associate of former President Jammeh. And 5 or 4, the immediate forfeiture to the state of all monies in all frozen commercial bank accounts in the Gambia upon the expiration on 17 June 2019 of the freezing order of the High Court. All financial institutions in the country, especially the commercial banks, are hereby advised to take note of this action and announcement, which will soon be followed by correspondence specifically addressed to each of them. His Excellency the President has also approved the establishment of an interministerial task force at both the technical and ministerial levels, comprising the Ministries of Justice, Finance, Local Government and Lands, Tourism and Agriculture, to handle all matters in relation to the said interim measures, and to deal especially with third-party interests arising from claims of properties acquired by former President Jammeh, and taking into account the recommendations of the Commission. In view of this decision, the proposed Commission of Inquiry into lands that were unlawfully confiscated, demolished, or otherwise unlawfully acquired by former President Jammeh will no longer be necessary, as the said task force will now handle all third-party claims to property vis-à-vis President Jammeh to the extent possible. Furthermore, I am also inviting all those persons whose properties were acquired by former President Jammeh through a judicial sale by the Sheriff of the High Court to contact the Solicitor General or the Attorney General at the Ministry of Justice in person or through authorized third parties between 24th and 28th of June 2019. All other persons with claims over any of the properties of former President Jammeh are hereby advised to address their claims in writing to the Ministry of Justice by 28 June 2019 and to meanwhile desist from interfering with any of the said properties forfeited to the state. These measures will be published in the Gazette as public notice. More information about the measures and other subsequent actions will be included in the government white paper. I once again take this opportunity to call on the international community, particularly our friends and allies in the United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union, the Africa region, and the Middle East, with expertise and experience in asset recovery, to assist the Gambia track and recover stolen assets belonging to the state. The Gambia desperately needs all the assistance it can get in this endeavor. I now turn to the TRRC. I have today filed a nolle prosequi, effectively terminating legal proceedings against Ms. Fatoumata Jahumpa Ceesay and Mr. Yankuba Toure, who were being prosecuted for various offenses, including conspiracy to interfere with a TRRC witness. All charges against them in respect of these offenses have now been dropped. Interfering with a TRRC witness is a very serious offense, and I hope that there are lessons here for everyone. While I am not yet in a position to inform the public of my reasons for taking this decision, but I hope to be able to do so later, I also take this opportunity to renew my call for all witnesses or potential witnesses to cooperate fully with the TRRC as it tries to establish the truth about our dark past and help us reconcile as a nation. Any attempts to undermine this national healing process in any manner will bear serious consequences. On security sector reform, over the past 2 weeks, 2 drafting teams have been commissioned to draft 2 strategy documents for the security sector reform process. About 2 days ago, we launched the National Security Policy under the chairmanship of His Excellency the President. The members of the drafting teams include representatives from the Ministries of Justice, Defense, and Interior, from the different security agencies, and from the Ministry of Women's Affairs. They will be drafting the National Security Strategy to implement the National Security Policy and the Security Sector Reform Strategy to specifically address the findings and recommendations of the Security Sector Reform Assessment Report, which was completed in December 2017. They have up to 3 months to complete both drafts. A 5-day retreat has been organized for them from June 17 to 21st to kickstart the drafting exercise. We will endeavor to provide you with a timeline of activities and deliverables in this critical reform process soon. Ladies and gentlemen, this is all I had for you today. I'll take a few questions and then we'll call it a day. It's always useful to perhaps conduct a bit of research before some of these questions are put.
Yes.
What would they sue the government for? Maybe is what you should ask yourself before you ask the question. What are you thinking about? What's in your mind? I don't know what they will be suing the government for, to answer your question. I don't understand your question.
All right, sir.
Maybe you can think about it and come back to me. It's up to you. If you have the follow-up question, by all means. But what do you think they can sue the government for?
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think they can sue the government for?
I don't want to talk about my own, but I think there is this opportunity for an accused person who has been accused by somebody and been taken to court or detained for a while. But if the court now have investigated your case and they decided to drop a charge against you, you have the legal right to use Section 19 against anybody who accuse you.
I didn't know you were a lawyer now.
No, I'm not a lawyer.
You're interpreting the Section 19. Oh, well, I'm afraid your fears are unfounded. Yes.
Correct. Because I was in the court when witness Alaji Kani said the time he was communicating with Yankuwa and Jahumpa,
No, let's not
called by the commission at that time.
Yeah, I know, but let's not get into the facts. You're not a lawyer. You're not in court.
Yeah,
you don't know the reasons for my decision. So don't assume.
No, I'm not assuming. What I'm saying is when I was there, what has been said there.
Then I know what has been said because I'm the one who's prosecuting. And you're assuming, because the reason why you said we should have done our homework, you're assuming that we have dropped these charges for reasons related to the evidence in court. That's the assumption you're making. And I'm telling you that you're wrong. That's not the premise. You shouldn't ask questions with an assumption. Ask questions to which you seek genuine answers, and you will get them. But don't ask questions on the basis of assumptions.
Well,
you do not know the reason for my decision, do you?
Okay.
So how do you assume?
Now, in the face of this issue, now why did the state will drop the charges against them? Why do you think the state...
Well, I have just said I am not yet in a position to share that information
now
with
let
you.
me use that as my first question. Now, the second question I want to forward is, Jarvis Properties CISO has been announced here. We understand there are others who has been adversely mentioned during the findings of the Janneh Commission. What is going to be the decision of the Attorney General and Justice Minister in prosecuting some of those who may be indicted, during the course of the finding?
You will get to know.
That I would like to know. Third question is what has the Attorney General and Minister of Justice done so far in the case of the Kanilai shooting recently? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll take your second question. It is not for the Attorney General to take any action. The Constitution empowers the President to take action. And the President, I have said this on numerous occasions, that the President has 6 months. So when the 6 months is over, you can come back to me and ask these questions. But the actions that will be taken will be included in a white paper, just like we did in the Faraba Banta case. Now, we are taking interim measures on those matters that we think can be done immediately based on our ongoing review of the Commission's report. But we have not yet concluded that review. But so far, we believe we have enough to take interim measures. And that is the result of this announcement today. But hopefully, by the time we complete our total review or full review of the report, we would be able to share, if the President so decides, to publish the report in the next 3 months. So again, he has 6 months, so that's not up to me. Now, in terms of the Haruna Jatta incident, again, unfortunately, that is a matter that is not within... You see, the Ministry of Justice doesn't have law enforcement under it. I only give advice, and I give advice when that advice is requested. When the files are investigated and sent here, that is when we are involved. That's when we get involved in these matters. I have said over and over again that that incident was investigated jointly by the Gambia Armed Forces and ECOMIC. And I think it's about time that you start channeling your inquiry about that incident to those bodies and not to the Ministry of Justice. I can't give you what I don't have. I don't have an answer for you, I'm afraid. And I have actually attempted, as part of my functions as Minister of Justice and Justice for All, to reach out and inquire about the state of investigations into that matter, because it was raised a couple of times at the National Assembly, To this day, I have not yet received a response to my inquiry. That's the best I can give you, I'm afraid. Let me go to this side. Yes, Davo. Thank you, Davo. With respect to your first question, the task force that has been established by the President will look into the different categories of properties, and they will be handling and dealing with these properties and advising the President appropriately on what use to put to these properties. So the task force is yet to convene. It has only been launched recently, been established recently. We haven't even had our inaugural meeting yet. But that is the role of this task force, to basically go through the list of properties and to determine on a case-by-case basis what appropriate action or measures to take with respect to each property. In terms of the property in the United States, I am engaged in discussions with authorities in the United States regarding that property as well. I believe I had information that the property was frozen. I am involved in exchanges with the ambassador who is here, Ambassador Pascal, and we have been working on this, and I think that's all I can say for the time being. It's the same I will also say with respect to properties or other properties outside the country. Asset tracking and recovery is a very sensitive matter, and people have the ability to move assets around the world, and we are cooperating with several governments. I am not at liberty to disclose the nature or the identity of those governments. Otherwise, I risk endangering the process of recovery, because those assets can be moved very quickly. And let's remember that the assets recovery effort outside the Gambia are not, unfortunately, within our control. They are on foreign territory. They are subject to foreign laws, and we can only rely on the goodwill and support and cooperation of those countries where some of these assets are. So unfortunately, that's all I can give you in terms of the assets outside the country. Cisse?
Thank you very much, Honorable. With regards to the issue of President Jammeh's assets, what do you say to those that suggest that Jammeh deserves to be hard for the government?
He deserves to be? Well, he was given an opportunity to be heard. I think the Commission of Inquiry reached out and served him, I recall certainly, but he didn't take that opportunity, so we can't do much about that. But I think he was given the opportunity to be heard, certainly. Bye.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Talking about the security sector reform, in a report, Article 19, Fatou Jammeh Senghor, he was, raising concern about the system and the same person who served the former regime are still in the system. What do you think of that, first of all? And secondly, we had also in a report that to the donors, to the TRC, that Senegal is included, and we would like to have a confirmation from you, and it is yes, and how much Senegal has given to the Gambia. Thank you very much. If I have it in English and in Wolof, if possible.
It's up to you. I can do either English or Wolof.
But
okay, let me start with your question on serving members of the former regime. I think there are a few basic facts we need to establish here. There's nothing wrong in principle to serving under the former regime. There's nothing wrong in principle. When people have not engaged in acts that are criminal or inappropriate, we should not be judgmental about them. We should not label people simply because they have served under the former president. If that is the case, then we might as well disband our entire security apparatus. And we have seen the consequences of that in Iraq following the US invasion. That's not an approach we have even contemplated. Yes, there has been severe delay in the security sector reform process. I think we all acknowledge that. And perhaps that is why His Excellency appointed me as the chair to inject fresh impetus and energy into the process. But the fact remains, it's a very delicate, sensitive matter. We want to get it right. We don't want people to we don't want to create a new class of victims in this country anymore. We want whatever actions we're doing, we base it on facts and not on assumptions. And those facts need to be established first and foremost. So hopefully we will begin to see more activity in the security sector reform. But I do accept that it's slow. It should have perhaps been accelerated at a particular point. That's not the case. But serving under the former regime by and of itself is not a crime.
Some of them are, have been allegedly, mentioned at the TRRC.
Yes, a lot of people have been mentioned at the TRRC, and a lot more will continue to be mentioned at the TRRC. The point is this. Do you want to establish the truth first and foremost? Or do you want to preempt what the TRRC will conclude in respect of those who have been mentioned? How do you balance the issue of due process? At the same time, of course, we need to be worried about those who have been mentioned, certainly, but we also need to provide them with an opportunity to be heard, like we have heard some of the others who've come forward, who are still serving and have admitted to participating in these atrocities. Others need to be heard as well. So we need to approach this with caution and not rush things, because we are in a position of responsibility and we need to take this responsibility seriously. That's my response to your first question. Yes, Senegal has indeed been very generous to contribute to the TRRC. Unfortunately, the nature of the contribution is such that I am not yet in a position to pinpoint the exact amount, because it's to be derived from a particular activity. Hopefully very soon, maybe by my next press conference, I would be able to tell you exactly how much Senegal is contributing to our TRRC process. But in principle, yes, they are contributing. How much exactly, I am not yet in a position to share with you. Okay? For the rule of law and compliance with court orders. Now, I would be happier if you were more specific in those two areas, but I am assuming that you are referring, and correct me if I am wrong, that you are referring to the case of the junglers on one hand and to the decision at Kermot Ali on the other hand. And I think I have responded to both issues in my last press conference in June here. Your colleague was here, and I did respond. Allow me perhaps to summarize again. I have admitted that the issue of the junglers is an unfortunate one. It's been a difficult matter for me personally as a human rights advocate. But we have found ourselves after the change in an extraordinary situation. The junglers are an extraordinary group of people who have admitted to the most terrible crimes in this country. Our options were either to bring them to court and be compelled to proceed with a case when we do not yet have the material, human, the infrastructural, logistics, resources necessary to undertake such a trial in this country yet, or to release them to the public. Those were the options we had. We could take neither. And so the unfortunate thing is that they have been in detention for a while now. I have engaged with the TRRC, and we are working to facilitate their voluntary appearance at the TRRC soon. So hopefully that will resolve the matter of the junglers for me. On Kermot Ali, there has been a court order allowing the one part of the community to return to the village. But as I said here during my last press conference, if that were to happen and violence erupts in the village between the two sets of communities and it results in death or injuries, you would come back to us and say the government is irresponsible, because we have allowed two communities who at the moment cannot be reconciled to, we've basically forced them to leave. Of course, the court order has to be respected, but there are different ways of enforcing a court order. And I think the Honorable Chief Justice has engaged the Minister of Lands. I am involved in that as well, to see how best we can mediate between the two communities so that at least those whose rights have been recognized by the court are allowed back into the village and in a more peaceful and stable environment. Otherwise, if we force the community that is there right now to accept these orders and not provide the necessary security in the area, then we would be blamed for any violent consequences. And so, and we can't afford that. Our security services, particularly the police, are very overstretched, and we can't have permanently stationed in the village members of the PIU. Otherwise, it will affect other parts of the country. So that's the situation with Kermit Ali. It's not a matter of not enforcing or respecting the court order. It's a matter of how best to implement that court order. That's what I would say to you.
So that will be that for today's news review. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for being there. Goodbye.